My friends, hello and welcome back to the Fireside. It's quite a chilly night up here, a little bit below 10 degrees Celsius, 50 Fahrenheit. And so of course you need to keep a well-stoked fire to get through a cool fall night like this. I hope you're safe and dry and warm wherever you are, and welcome to enjoy a nice fireside story tonight. And tonight, the story we have is a very interesting one, centered around the game Mario Kart 64, a true classic. And this story is about an event, something that happened 22 years ago, with evidence, with photographic evidence, and it remains unexplained to this day. And the sort of philosophical questions this brings up about speedrunning, I think are important and something that we'll dive into in tonight's chat. So here's the story. The year's 1998. A young gentleman, Mario Kart player, Greg Inatenko, is playing Royal Raceway 3-lap shortcut. If the name sounds familiar, it's because yes, Inatenko is half the namesake of the famous WeatherTenko shortcut on Choco Mountain. The other half is Andrew Weatherton. Both guys who have been around the Mario Kart scene for a very, very long time. Both know the score cold. And obviously this is why both of them have led to discovering an insane shortcut like that on Choco Mountain. But Inatenko has been known for more than that. He's achieved quite a number of world records throughout his career, especially in the shortcut modes. In fact, even today in 2020, he still has a share of the record on Yoshi Valley and Wario Stadium. Very tricky courses, very short, crazy trick that needs to be pulled off very precisely. So he's good at the game. He knows the game inside and out. He's playing Royal Raceway in 1998. Now, Royal Raceway shortcut in time trial has not really changed from back then. So if you're to watch a Royal Raceway shortcut record, you start off a couple turns, there's a kind of a hairpin turn, you jump into the water. You hit a brown piece of wall as you're landing in the water, and Lackey 2 places you up on the ramp, the super ramp, to shoot you across the pond. Instead of going across the pond as intended, you turn left, and you fly off into the distance, land on another specific mound area. Lackey 2 places you on the latter half, or really the latter corner of the track, and you finish the lap. And of course, on a 3-lap shortcut run, you would want to do this 3 times. So it's a total of 6 shortcuts, right? It's the first one. The first one saves a good amount of time. And then the second one, which is the ramp over to the left side, and that one only saves a couple of seconds over if you were to just not do the shortcut and drive intentionally. So that one doesn't save as much time. But of course, is another 2 or 3 seconds. So in a shortcut mode, it is, of course, worth it. But there's even a more interesting alternative to this flying over the left-hand side shortcut. And that is if you hit a very, very specific spot on the mound. Not always, but sometimes. And you can get it with reasonable consistency once you really get it down. Sometimes Lackey 2 will kind of glitch out, and instead of placing you where you'd be expected to place, at the last corner of the track, Lackey 2 kind of like backs you up at a reverse angle on the finish line, placing you there and finishing the course. Now, that technique could be used on all 3 laps. It could be used. It even saves about 1 or 2 seconds over the aforementioned strategy where you get placed in the last turn. But you're facing backwards. And so when you combine having to turn around with good speed, maybe weighing the use of a mushroom there as opposed to where it's normally used in your 3-lap attempts, and the difficulty and inconsistency of hitting the trick. You usually wouldn't go for it on all 3 laps. And even to this day, in the world record, Abney holds the world record today. We see it only used on the 3rd lap. It's kind of called the Lakitu picky uppy reverse over the line trick. That's one of its, maybe not official, but close to it, official name. So, yeah, funny stuff. So it's a tough course to get a good 3-lap run. The first shortcut as described, onto the mound, up on the ramp, then second shortcut across the bay, and the grand finale is, of course, the Lakitu picky uppy over the line. So you have to hit 6 tricks to get a really clean Royal Raceway 3-lap shortcut time. That's a bit of a challenge to hit 3 tricks in the same run. So, Inatenko's playing this level in 1998. He gets a good run. First lap hits both tricks. Second lap hits both tricks. Third lap hits the first trick. Goes flying off the left mound. Crashes in, off the left ramp. Hits the mounds as needed for the Lakitu picky uppy thing, which takes place. Lakitu places on the line. He thinks he has a world record, but something very, very, very strange happens. When you finish a Mario Kart time trial, you cross the line, you get the little fanfare, and then your 3 lap times come in on the top with the total time underneath. 4 lines of numeric text come scrolling in, displaying the times as appropriate. On this run, however, the text for the 3-lap, the total time, kept running. It kept moving. This is not something that happens. But it happened on this run, ostensibly. Even stranger was that when Greg cued into the results screen, where it's kind of split into 4 quarters, 2 of the quarters are showing kind of a replay of the course, whereas the other 2 corners are showing your times of that race compared with your all-time best times. On this screen, it showed him that he had achieved a lap time of 0.00000 seconds on that 3rd lap. A new world record, perhaps, the 0-second lap. And there is photographic evidence of this lap score. Now, this photograph is not from the results screen as I just described. It's from when you go into the race data screen in game and take a look at it there. But all the same, 0-second fast lap. I mean, that's insanely bizarre, right? Even stranger is that Greg would continue to play on this cartridge, and the game saved the 0-second lap sort of in this like quasi there, quasi not there state. If you're to open a fresh cartridge, you don't have the zeros, you have a bunch of dashes in its place. So the 0 signifies that the 0-second lap is recorded into the cart. If there was nothing, null, there'll be only dashes. When Greg would play the course, though, anytime he would cross the line on a lap, it would show you the rainbow flashing text as if you had just gotten a new cartridge PB for your fast lap. So in that context, it kind of signifies that it didn't interpret the 0-second lap as recorded or real. But at the end of the race, no matter how fast of a lap he would score, his best lap time would remain on the cartridge 0.0000. Incredibly strange. Again, we have a picture of it. And Greg would eventually mail his cartridge off to another well-established member of the Mario Kart community, a gentleman named Kevin Booth. And he would verify that this is in fact the state of Inatenko's cartridge on Royal Raceway. To this day, no one has been able to replicate or explain what happened in this scenario. Greg's sort of folk explanation is, it's kind of like a best hope, like no idea what it could be, so here's my guess, is that maybe he finished his 3-lap time on the exact same frame as the course ghost, Peach. But even he admits this is probably, very likely not the case. He thinks the times don't quite add up. And if it was something like that, like you might expect that it would have been replicated at some point. Someone would have discovered that's what caused it. Obviously the trick, the lackey to backy uppy trick is strange, is kind of a weirdly broken glitch in the game, even more so than other tricks where you bump a certain part of the track and get transported by lackey 2 over there. But yeah, there's no good explanation on what happened. And this has been brought up a number of times over the past 22 years, and still no one can figure it out. And even Mario Kart has a lot of very, very smart tool-assisted speedrunners who really know the game cold, and they haven't been able to figure out or replicate it. Now, of course, the young Forest64, who has recently showed up on the scene and caused quite a stir, discovering many shortcuts that have led to new world records. I don't think he's taken a look at it yet, so maybe in time he'll be the one to crack the case, but it's just such a strange event that happened to Greg on that fateful Royal Raceway run 22 years ago. Obviously, the Mario Kart community decided not to count the record as 0 seconds. Of course, the fast lap record is usually a more traditional method with a time that saves to the cartridge fully. So it's not considered a world record, the 0 second time. It's kind of just considered this anomaly in the game, this kind of piece of history that's there to marvel at. And I think it is the right call not counting this as the world record. Even if there was video proof, like back in '98, photo proof was as good. It was considered like you're going above and beyond to prove your time. But videos were very, very rare back then, so they weren't to be expected. Most people would prove their times with photo proof. So the 0 second photo would be enough, would be sufficient to prove the time. But even so, the community decided not to count this as the world record, and I think that is the right call.
All right, so I need to include this postscript addendum, a clarifier that I should mention but forgot to bring up by the actual Fireside. So there's this very real known glitch, a memory glitch, where the game basically erases all your data. You'll go to power up your game and your personal records are gone from the game data. In this case, all of your scores read 000000, like you're seeing now in this video from Shadow of Miles from 12 years ago. Your PBs can usually be restored with a reset, and this kind of thing is common in numerous N64 games. You may have even experienced it yourself at some point. It's usually just a dirty cartridge contacts thing, or a crooked cartridge thing, as Miles describes forcing the glitch by turning on a crooked cartridge, and how it goes away easily when you power it back on with the game in properly. But this known glitch is different than whatever Greg experienced, because his 000000 time was recorded permanently into the game's memory. In this case, the times go away with a good reset, hopefully. But in Greg's case, it stayed there forever. It's still there to this day, as far as we know. And it was the only one time listed on the data pages, rather than, as you see in this video, every single time reads 0. Greg's was the only one on the page. So, yeah, very strange. And it also happened while he was playing, right? It happened while he finished a run, rather than something that we saw when the game started up. So there's that clarifier. I just want to point it out for sure. And now back to the rest of the video.
But it does bring up a very interesting question when it comes to speedrunning as a whole. Speedrunning, in a way, is this sort of paradoxical endeavor where the goal is obviously to go fast and improve and optimize. But what happens when you get to that end goal where you have fully optimized the game or the course or the level? You only ask if you could. You never ask if you should. You know, it's like, should we speedrun and optimize these games so severely? Because a lot of the fun of speedrunning is getting new records and slowly marching down to a more and more optimal run in whatever game you're playing. What happens when the record's 0 seconds? You kind of get to this heat death of speedrunning where nothing more can be optimized. You know, it's this kind of very strange theoretical place to think about. You know, it's kind of like, what is the point in speedrunning if you can't go any lower? And sure, not everyone's going to have the optimized world record. Some people will play just to improve themselves. But like, what happens when, say, there's a glitch that comes up that allows you to beat the game in 0 seconds? We're actually kind of starting to see this in Mario Kart 64 with some of the new shortcuts discovered. The Toad's Turnpike fast lap shortcut record is now 0.40 seconds, 0.4 of a second. When you compare this to, say, the old method of Toad's Turnpike shortcut, you know, this was, you had to pull off one trick and then drive a very skilled lap to finish and get your PB or your world record. So it's not to say that there's no skill or even less skill involved in the 0.4 second lap, but it's not as like an obvious of a progression, right? You can imagine like if a course is 10 minutes long and you slowly improve your PB 1 second at a time, it feels good. It feels like you're constantly improving. You're constantly bettering yourself, and getting those new PBs is that rush that you kind of seek in speedrunning. But like, let's say you're getting those PBs from 10 minutes down to 1 minute. You know, you've gotten this whole set. It would be, 540 PBs. Let's say it takes you an hour to get each PB. You've played 540 hours. Now let's say instead of 540 hours spent improving your PB 1 second at a time, it's spent trying to set up one extremely complicated glitch and hitting it once to get a 0 second time. It's like, I personally think it's not as fun. It's not as rewarding. It might be. You might hit that glitch, you might be super pumped about it and it feels great. But that progression, that's what a lot of speedrunners are in it for, to slowly progress and see themselves improve piece by piece by piece. You do see a bit of different mentality in a couple speedrunners though. Some people, like let's say you might watch a Super Mario 64 120 star runner and his PB might be 150 in the category and he's on like a 146 pace upstairs and he messes up severely. And he could still get a 148, he could still get a new PB, but he resets because he knows he can get 146 and that's his kind of intermediate goal at the time being. But there are others who would just finish the run and get that improvement and slowly watch the progression go down. So there is a little bit of difference in philosophy and how to play. Another interesting example is, the relatively recent arbitrary code execution stuff in Ocarina of Time. Obviously, the game has now been, broken to a point where it's beatable in 7 minutes by warping to the credits using all sorts of crazy glitches. But there's even crazier glitches, and it has been done as sort of a proof of concept where you can set up the files in such a way that you can literally warp to the credits from pressing A on a fresh file, thus beating the game in 0 seconds. This has been demonstrated. That part isn't counted as a world record speedrun, on the any% leaderboards. So it's like, where do you draw the line, right? It's like, the question really is like, where do you decide when a game is too broken to be fun anymore? And I think it's kind of easy to see that at 0 seconds, a 0 second speed run, maybe we've reached that point. They're very cool as a novelty, I'll give them that, and as like a theoretical proof of concept thing. And I do realize this is kind of where it gets into personal opinion, right? But in terms of competing with others and competing with yourself, I find a more expansive game or stage where you slowly track down your time to be more rewarding and really more what speedrunning is all about. But I get it. That's kind of a nebulous, vague statement. Another consideration, if it's something that you value at all, and I know some people don't, is the idea of ranking players. It can be fun, especially when you're starting out, to see yourself on a leaderboards, on a ranking system, and see where you compare to other people. See where you compare to some all-time greats. See where you compare to some people, from your era who started at the same time as you, and kind of have these budding rivalries, pushing yourself further and further. Obviously, the more room for optimization, the more accurate a ranking system can be. Imagine a game where, like, let's say a Mario Party game where you get 10 seconds to play the game and you can beat it in 3 or 4 seconds, right? There's not much differentiation that can be done on a ranking system between the people who can beat it in 3 seconds and 4 seconds. It's like eventually you're going to beat it in 3 seconds, max it out, and that's it. Like, there's nothing more to it. Whereas a game like Mario 64 120 Star, which can never kind of be solved that same way, there's always going to be a difference, a way to rank the players in order from fastest time to the more slow times. And so you're always going to be able to see where you stack up in comparison with other people. The shorter a game gets, the more optimized the game gets, that can be more and more difficult to achieve. An interesting example is like Super Mario Bros. 1, very optimized game. A ton of people have sub 5 minutes now, like hundreds of people have sub 5 minutes. And yet, the timing methods are so precise that you can break it down and compare these people, quite accurately, which is very impressive. But it's not the case in a lot of games where you're going down to the full second, or even in Mario Kart, where you go down to the 100th of seconds, when you get these super, super optimized shortcuts, these laps in 1 or 2 seconds. Some of them certainly are very, very, very challenging to pull off. Of course, most of them are. But I do wonder if the games will ever get to a point where everyone has it solved. Everyone gets the 1 second lap or the 0.4 second lap. And so there's not much room to compare each other's times on the courses. You do kind of wonder if, like, the Toad's Turnpike is a great example. You have non-shortcut, fast lap and 3 lap. You have the shortcut, fast lap and 3 lap. Could you have a third set, old shortcut, 3 lap and fast lap? And you would have to kind of determine specific parameters of what that old shortcut is. And that does always get messy because people then figure out how to optimize specifically that older route, that older shortcut. You see the same kind of challenges with the kind of older or mid-range Ocarina of Time categories. Back in my day, they were MST and Old Dungeons, and now you have, they've been altered to no item manipulation and that kind of stuff. No RBA, no wrong warp. I don't think a lot of these exist anymore because they've been optimized, and you have to determine, well, what's the category called now? So at the end of the day, speedrunning can be a messy and strange place. Do what you enjoy always. Play the game the way you enjoy it always. If a shortcut or a route has become too optimal and you don't enjoy playing it that way, play it the way you enjoy it. And if no one else does, maybe you might just start a new trend, and people might say, you know what, we'll play with this guy's route because it's the one that we enjoy as well. That's always the number one priority. But there are a lot of interesting things to think about when it comes to 0-second times, the theoretical max, the theoretical heat death of speedrunning, because that day is coming. Eventually, it may be way off thousands of years in the future or millions of years. You know, imagine like some theoretical point in time, millions of years into the future, if humans are alive and still speedrunning and there's no new video games and we've optimized every single game that's ever been in existence. You can't do any better. Like, speedrunning's over in a sense, right? And, you know, if you love speedrunning, if you're passionate about speedrunning, you don't want to see that point. And, you know, that's all there is to it. Luckily, that's a far way off. So, hey, enjoy the ride for now. So that's the story of Greg Inatenko's 0-second Royal Raceway fast lap time, this strange anomaly that happened in Mario Kart 64 from 1998 that no one can explain. Could it have been a crooked cartridge scenario? Possibly. Of course, the meme explanation is always a rogue gamma ray, and who knows what secrets will be uncovered as time goes on. But hey, I hope you enjoyed this little story by the fire and the tangents that we explored from it. I always like that one because it has a really good jumping off point to talk about all these other things in speedrunning. But hope I kept you some company. You're feeling nice and warm and comfy. Thanks for watching. As always, stay true, my friends, and I'll see you in the next stream or video. Good night.